In this podcast, we're going to go over how to name alcohols using the IUPAC naming system. All right, so we're going to start where we start with every family and functional group. Alcohols are a group of organic compounds that have a hydroxyl group attached to a carbon. So this is your hydroxyl group, which makes this entire molecule part of the alcohol family. All right, so we're going to start where we always start with every molecule that we try to name. We are going to find the longest continuous chain of carbon that contains that hydroxyl group. Then we're going to take the parent alkane name and we're going to drop the E. So if we were working with, say, what we have below, the longest chain that includes a hydroxyl group is 3 long. So the alkane name is propane. I drop that E, and then I'm going to change the ending to OL. So what was propane becomes propanol. And if you have 3 or more carbons, which we do in this situation, you're going to number the chain to indicate the position of the hydroxyl group. Remember that your alcohol carbon is going to take precedence over any alkyl branches or non-alkyl branches. We got to give it the lowest number possible. So in this situation, I could number 1, 2, 3, or it's pretty obvious going the opposite direction, 1, 2, 3. No matter what, that alcohol is, or the hydroxyl, excuse me, is on the second carbon. So the correct name for this would be 2-propanol. So our last example didn't have any branches on it, so I want to add this last rule about naming and locating any branches. You're going to use all the same rules that you've used before. Remember that your OH group is going to take precedence over any other group, so you want to make sure that you're counting in every which direction to make sure that that OH is getting the lowest carbon possible. All right, so right away I see a very long chain in front of me, but I'm going to double check it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I count using this blue demarcation, then I've got my alcohol carbon on carbon number 3. I'm just going to count in the opposite direction, make sure that I can't get a lower number. 1, 2, 3, 4. Definitely don't want to count right to left. That's going to give me a higher number for my alcohol carbon. And also, I just want to double check that going into a branch as the longest chain doesn't extend it any longer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's still 6 carbons long. So the longest chain is 6 for sure. All right, so the longest chain is 6. So the parent alkane name is hexane. But remember that I dropped the E from that, and I'm going to add the OL to the ending. So hexanol is our parent name. We do have to indicate the location of that hydroxyl group. So we've already determined that to be on the 3rd carbon. So our parent chain is 3-hexanol. Now we're going to deal with those branches that weren't part of the longest chain. Because I started counting left to right to give the alcohol the 3rd carbon position, both of my methyl groups are on carbon number 2. So 2,2-dimethyl, 3-hexanol is the name of this structure. All right, so at this point, I highly recommend that you pause me, work these 2 problems, and then check in with me to see if you got the same answer I did. All right, so this first problem, I'm going to locate the longest chain of carbon that contains the hydroxyl. Done. It's 3 carbons long, which means the parent alkane name is propane. Drop that E, change it to an OL, it's propanol. And if I number this from right to left, that gives my hydroxyl group carbon number 1. That's the lowest number I could possibly do. And because that hydroxyl could either be on the 1st carbon or it could be on the 2nd carbon, notice that it cannot be on the 3rd carbon because we would just count left to right and that becomes the 1st carbon again. I have to number this. So remember, we use the Chandler principle. Ask yourself, could this group be anywhere else? If it can, you have to number it. When in doubt, you're not going to get marked off for adding a number to it, even if it's not necessary. So it's always a good idea to number those. For our second example, we're going to find the longest chain. 1, 2, 3, 4 in this direction. Or if I were to count using that methyl group, 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are equal to each other. We'll just leave it as is. I'm going to count from right to left so that I can give my alcohol precedence and make sure that that hydroxyl group is on the lowest carbon possible. So 1, 2, 3 is where my branch is, 4 is the end. The parent chain is butane. Remember that we dropped the E and changed the ending to OL. Because that hydroxyl group could be on carbon 1 or 2, I have to tell what position it's in. So this is 1-butanol, and that takes care of our parent chain. Now we need to deal with the branch. That methyl group is coming off of the 3rd carbon, so the name is 3-methyl 1-butanol.